We live in an era of profound change. During the past couple of decades, we witnessed the transition from an industrial, resource-oriented economy to a global, networked knowledge economy. With globalization, rapid technological advances, and increased connectivity, the rules of the economy have changed, creating big challenges and opportunities for American cities and their communities. Malo Hudson.
Look back in time, especially in the U.S., the early formation of cities, I mean, much of that was based on industrialization. So if you're starting from the East Coast, you look at many of our earlier cities, most of it's all around industry. And then as time has gone on, cities evolved from one being based primarily on industrialization and trade along ports. So for instance, you had cities like Buffalo and Cleveland, Detroit, all along either lakes or rivers, so they could do trade with New York and so forth. Knowledge is very important, information is important, having educated people that live in your city is very important, and so it's changed very much from just one that was primarily manufacturing and based on industry to one that is now looking at software, information technologies, looking at biotech. You can go on, but certainly cities are much more dynamic in terms of their economy and also the people who live in those cities.
The impact of these new rules on cities is driving a need for new patterns of interaction among citizens. This new discourse requires openness and connectedness to bring innovation to the forefront for change and transformation of our cities. Ahmad Mansur.
The industrial period was really based on confrontation between business and people. People were moving for their rights and businesses were trying to grow and to nationalize and even globalize. And you really had government kind of being the mediator of that type of creative tension. And it worked. I mean, it created opportunities for us to really develop a strong middle class culture, and we see that our companies have grown to be what they are. But now we find ourselves at the end of that life cycle. And I think what you're seeing is that there's almost systems failure where all of those systems are no longer working to our benefit.
Urban regions face complex challenges today. Obsolete educational systems, public safety threats, housing shortages, workforce challenges, and environmental concerns. Many have come to define these challenges as wicked problems.
Wicked problems are ones where they're complicated. There are a lot of different stakeholders who see reality in a very different way. It's hard to even define the problem. It's hard to know that you've solved the problem, except maybe in terms of 20/20 hindsight. These are the kind of problems that also require a lot of creative process and facilitation and persistence. So if you think about it, most of the challenging problems that face society are not tame problems, but wicked problems, whether it's issues of education policy or health and welfare or urban renewal and redesign or reinventing the foundations of the economy. I mean, these are not the kind of problems where you can just sit down and with a simple kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 process come up with an answer. What you have to do is get everyone together and kind of thrash out an answer together, recognizing that the answer you come up with may only be the temporary good answer until you move forward.
The existing leadership structures in cities appears to no longer function as a viable option for meeting the urban challenges of the 21st century. Despite these challenges, people continue to migrate to cities in large numbers, prompting new leaders to emerge as problem solvers, systems changers, and creators, finding ways to innovate new solutions for the future. John Kao.
Well, innovation to me is fundamental in an urban economy for a variety of reasons. First of all, just in terms of the importance of the urban environment, we not so recently passed an important milestone, which is that more than 50% of the world's population lives in cities. And if you think about how cities work as kind of crucibles for what is fashionable, what is on the leading edge, what is now, and if you think about how cities are able to distribute that knowledge from city to city, because advanced telecommunications and media and advertising and the youth culture all tend to, in a sense, transcend the boundaries of a particular city, then the urban environment, in a sense, is a tremendous engine for the innovation process.
The next urban economy appears to be bubbling from the bottom up, embracing new faces, ideas, and enterprises. To understand the driving forces of change in cities, we sought to examine the urban economy through the lenses of the doers, the people who are leading innovation in their communities in the areas of sustainability, education, investment, art and culture, corporate social responsibility, and governance. We interviewed social and business entrepreneurs, community organizers, government officials, academics, designers, and artists to get a perspective on what's occurring, as well as to frame an outlook for the future. With the national conversation circling around issues of climate change and energy independence, many are betting on the so-called green economy to emerge as the driver of America's future. Where do cities fit into the conversation?
And green innovation, and it's here to stay. It sort of begs the question of what do you mean when you say green innovation? And I'm not sure there is a real robust definition yet. I mean, clearly green encompasses many different areas, ranging from alternative energy, energy efficiency, effect of various policies on climate, brown versus green, et cetera, et cetera. So right now, to me, it's more like a flag than it is a discipline or a set of disciplines.
In cities, sustainability expands beyond the lofty policy issue of climate change. It boils down to innovators who are developing practical solutions to local concerns, like healthy food, clean air, and energy efficiency. David Roach.
Urban communities have been defined as having a lack of fresh food, a lack of access to foods for residents, especially in low-income communities. I see a younger generation of folks reconnecting. I see our generation, not as young as I used to be, as really connecting some of the dots of what our elders had once done, realizing that every auntie had a garden in the back, that we used to eat from, or trade amongst ourselves. And that art form is now being brought back to the schools once again as something that was really important for us to understand. You'll see now the garden being created at the White House now through Michelle Obama's leadership. You'll see Alice Waters, who does the Edible School Garden in Berkeley, where students are growing food and they cook food later, And what you don't hear about oftentimes is the influence of, like, Tuskegee Institute, where you have a George Washington Carver and you have a Booker T. Washington, who the whole college was based upon them growing their own food and feeding their own, classmates and actually learning those trades so they could actually, become more self-sufficient. And realizing that we have to stimulate our young folks to get involved in this industry, we think history is a big piece to share with them, because many of our youth don't know the history of us being in agriculture.
Saul Griffith.
That's where you really tie it into the cities. How do we make cities that are radically more efficient? And efficient is kind of a rough word, but how do we use a lot less energy in cities and have everyone be happy? And that's about getting your transportation systems right. That's about high density living. That's about having urban gardens. There's no way you solve climate change with our model of the car. So if you're really thinking 30 years out as a city planner, city designer, cars aren't in the equation as we know them at all. It's got to be a lot more pedestrian access, it's got to be a lot more electric vehicles, it's got to be a lot more bicycles, and you've got to really radically rethink that and start encouraging that, like, today. I don't think we're there yet in the dialogue. You know, people still are naively holding on to this hope. Oh, we all get an electric SUV and it's not going to work. You don't get that and solve climate change. So, you know, in cities, it's about doing that larger urban design correctly. It's trying to, in some respects, you're just trying to make sure that people don't have to travel as far. And if they are traveling as far, they're doing it by efficient means, trains and bikes. And then, yeah, you can gain a lot by having just better urban infrastructure. 90% of the time, what people actually mean, I don't think even understand that this is what they mean. But when they say efficiency, they mean behavioral change. And by behavioral change, it's like redesigning how we do things.
Lev Latu.
Innovation right now is so early that it's hard to speculate whether or not it is going to be scalable, adoptable, or even economically viable right now. Lots of great innovation that we can't use. It's not practical. And so how I see innovation playing a role is that somebody in our community has to make it be economically viable. If it's economically viable, then innovation will play a huge role. If it's just a laboratory experiment, it's not going to play any role at all. It'll be discarded. So as we have these centers that we build and these urban communities that are growing, sustainable gardens, agriculture, clean food, and apply those innovations to practical things, not long-term visionary things, but practical things we need right now in our community: food, transportation, clean transportation, education, and information. Innovation will play a huge role in those things because it's what's needed right now.
The educational system in U.S. cities has not kept pace in the global knowledge economy. Our K-12 attainment system is no longer the envy of the world. In urban areas, only 60% of high school students graduate. Many experts are referring to this critical problem as a talent deficit and say that there needs to be a major shift in how education is delivered to students, one that introduces technical, creative, and critical thinking skills.
So you can either import it or keep it, right, if it's already established, or you can make it, which is the education process. So historically, America has been the glory of public education. I mean, in some respects, we were really pioneers in establishing a fair and equitable public education system. But that system looks really long in the tooth now, and if you look at the statistics about 25+% of high school students not finishing high school, if you look at also what's going on in the rest of the world in terms of great new universities getting established, innovative universities, then I think from a policy level, what America has to do is to start thinking about managing its talent actively and not just letting it rip. We've talked about education, and I think it's really important also to look at ways in which education can be reinvented, because everything from the school schedule to the nature of the curriculum in much of public education, certainly in this country, is a holdover from the agricultural era or the industrial era. And here we are now in this age of innovation, this age of information technology. We're in a world in which the information technology content of a teenager's life outside of school may be bigger than the experiences they get inside school. And there are all kinds of issues about the relevance of education and how it also affects the overall innovation landscape in a particular society. So I think that what we need now is not so much a rush to specific answers, but to allow ourselves to engage in a period of experimentation where, from an innovation perspective, if we were going to add innovation to education, we would take out the proverbial white piece of paper and say, what should the pathway through the education system look like, or what should the matrix of choices look like? There may be some people who specialize early and other people who specialize late. There certainly need to be a lot more ladders between general education and vocational education.
Sean McFetridge.
The logic of the K-12 system and the logic of the college system is a big divide. Early college helps to sort of bridge that divide because students are taking college-level work earlier. But I think this is where we get it wrong, which is even for early college, this is a partial solution. What we need to do is change the logic that we have. If we have K-12 and we have college, BA, AA, community college, whatever it is, and then we have grad school, and if these don't cohere, if they're slippery, if they're, what do they call it, leaky pipelines, then we need to think about, well, how do we divert the leak? I don't think this logic is created so that we're going to get every high school student into colleges. There's not enough room in the inn. We need to create new programs. We need to have a whole generation of educational entrepreneurs, which I think we do have, to create new certificate programs, in my mind, for local community workforce needs. My study right now is based on how City University of New York does exactly that. They get kids into their early colleges at grade 6, and they really scaffold higher attainment from middle school, which I think is what we need to look at, and boosting those standards. And so the kids are able to take college classes in 11th grade. Ostensibly what you're saying is high school will end at 10th grade, and college will begin in 11th grade. That's closer to, maybe in some regards, European model. They are sort of natives, digital natives. They know how to do technology use and work with media much more than my generation does. I've been very interested in work of people like Youth Radio. Youth Radio had an opportunity where they created a program that provided a safe place for some really high-level learning to go on for kids. And I recognized that they were actually getting students to be interested, to be turned onto very high technical subject matter.
Jacinda Abkarian.
So I think Youth Radio's role has been using media as a hook to get young people involved and engaged in civic issues. For the future, what I'm looking at is using media and using our model to bring in more young people and give them even more support.
R. Sean Randolph.
It's key to everybody's agenda. It is human capital, workforce, education. And there's a recognition, although it's very challenging to address it, that there's this continuum, that there's this K through 12 system that is underperforming, and that if you don't have the right kind of K through 12 system, it's harder to attract smart people to come and live here. If you don't have the right K through 12 system, you won't have the right pipeline of people who have the skills needed to go into community colleges and colleges.
Business investment and access to capital has historically been an exclusive arrangement between private equity firms and city government's desire to use tax breaks for corporate attraction. Ahmad Mansur.
Well, community investment is important because we have to see how we can best utilize our resources to really deal with some of the challenges and opportunities of the new economy, of the new urban economy. In the past, we've pretty much dealt with resources by everyone just kind of doing their own thing. So if you were in business, you did business and perhaps provided some philanthropic resources. And if you were in education, you counted on public systems to provide you with resources to get it done. And really, we're coming to a point now where to really deal with the human welfare of communities, no matter who they are, you really must look at how all of our organizations and systems can really be on the same page, a shared mutual purpose around leadership to invest, to be community investors, and to see what can bubble up from that. Not just community investment for community investment's sake, but really community investment so that our strategies overall in a city is aligned with our footprint, our environment, with developing the right type of intellectual and human capital, and to construct the type of, or should I say design the type of housing that we need in order to be successful as a city, to be sustainable as a city.
Stephen DeBerry.
I think our number one challenge right now is to move as much capital as possible to an orientation and posture that is not making a trade-off between producing a positive impact, but is aligned with producing a positive impact. In other words, I really would like to see more people get out of the mode that says, I'm going to do whatever it takes through whatever mercenary means to generate wealth. And then once I finish slashing and burning myself, others, the community, the society, then I'll give back. That doesn't make any sense. We're living through the consequences of that kind of worldview now. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Jose Corona.
One of the first things that the leaders and cities can do is really make supporting local urban entrepreneurs a priority. I think often the cities and the leadership and the policymakers have these great policies about how they're going to bring economic development, but they're not very specific. I think the best strategy, and in my opinion, is making urban entrepreneurs an investment in entrepreneurs, not only through bringing tax credits or incentives to keep them here and support their growth in their own cities, but also, the biggest barrier is capital. Like, how do you bring capital to these entrepreneurs, and how do you make it a priority that the city and these leaders are really going to make an effort to support that strategy? So it has to be a priority. It can't just be something that they profess. They really have to make a real policy effort that says we are going to support local urban entrepreneurs because we believe that this is going to reinvest wealth in our communities and create jobs. I think it's a priority issue.
I'm a capitalist, don't get me wrong. I'm pro-growth. I want to make money. I think we can make money and have a fantastic lifestyle and standard of living and richness in the fullest sense, not just monetary, but in our own lives and communities. But I don't believe that has to come at the cost of our broader sense of wellness. And in fact, I think it's possible to invest in advancing our broader sense of wellness as a means of generating wealth.
Talent is a particular ingredient for innovation, and wise cities understand that they have to, in a sense, develop the magnet for talent. So you have cities, for instance, like Singapore, which is a city-state, so it's a country that's a city, that explicitly is targeting at a global level the attraction of maybe as many as 500,000 members of the global creative class. How are they doing that? They're doing it by access to funding, access to tertiary education opportunities, putting in concert venues and extreme sports venues and gourmet restaurants, and establishing kind of a sophisticated expat culture where you don't feel like you're going to give up very much by moving to Singapore for a while in your life, but you do feel like you're going to gain a great deal. And that notion of competition for talent is also very much at the heart of national strategies as well. I mean, there are some countries that are explicitly in the talent business.
Creativity has become the most highly prized commodity in urban areas, according to economist Richard Florida, prompting cities to go from focusing on the right business climate to focusing on the right people climate. Artists, who are sometimes referred to as the creative class, now play an even more critical and expanded role in the economic development futures of cities. They serve as culture makers, as well as talent attractors. Jody Lomas.
Artists are creative problem solvers. You see that everywhere in the creative process. Often artists will create a constricted set of rules that they have to create by, and therefore they generate something truly unique. Scientists are creative problem solvers. And also artists and scientists are both observing the world around them and trying to make sense of it in their different ways. I believe artists could be utilized more often in teams that are trying to solve problems that relate to urban development and environmental issues, because artists are creative problem solvers. And they have developed their own perspective as unique from the perspectives around them, and that's what makes them interesting artists. Their particular perspective is what makes them successful and unique, and that particular perspective and that their particular problem-solving technique that they've developed over the course of their career is what makes them useful for think tanks, for creative problem-solving processes.
Melora Green.
I think from the beginning of time, art has been used as a tool to communicate, a tool for activism, a tool for creativity, a tool to tell stories. And I think a community that does not have an artist presence will die. I think artists find ways to bring people to a community. They find ways to bring business. It also develops the character of a community as well. You can go to the Mission and look at the arts and the wonderful murals that are there, the architecture, which is art as well, the jewelry, the different galleries, the different clothing shops. I mean, all of it is art. And I think they really do develop the character, the nature of a community, and I think it's very vital and extremely important.
Melanie Green.
So if artists would not just create things that are fun or funny or sexual or something that is obvious that people can connect with, but if they use their art for more than those things, they could really gain a different set of artists or set of people who respond to their work.
City leaders can support artists through better funding and stronger funding programs, as well as supporting the arts by presenting them better. And everyday people could be benefiting from the arts more if the arts were presented more regularly and in a broader way. I think it's sad that there are so many really great performing arts groups in the city that people know nothing about. They don't even know they exist. The city will benefit in terms of tourism, economy, becoming a cutting-edge, innovative city that could serve as a model to other cities in terms of its urban agriculture, its creative problem solving of common urban issues.
With the globalization, growth, and impact of the corporate business structure on local communities, citizens are now seeking to forge more innovative, socially responsible relationships with business in exchange for market activity. New innovative business models, like the B Corp, are emerging as viable options to support such civic arrangements. Mike Hannigan.
It's perhaps an extreme model because we donate all of our profits, but every company seeks to find ways to connect more with their communities because, especially right now, it's kind of a demand on the part of consumers. Most consumers continue to say that they would prefer to do business with companies that have a positive impact in their community. They're not willing to pay more, they're not willing to sacrifice service or quality, but if they can find a way to patronize a company that has a positive impact in their community, they will find a path to making that choice.
Chip Connolly.
When my first purchase of a hotel when I was 26 years old was in the Tenderloin here in San Francisco, it was my opportunity to give back, similar to how the Merchants gave back to me when I was in high school. And so I started doing a lot of things in the Tenderloin neighborhood to try to make a difference. And what I saw is that as I did things to improve the community, it can improve the neighborhood. As it improved the neighborhood, it meant that people who came to the hotel felt like they were in a better neighborhood. Maybe they were willing to pay more for their average room rate for the room that they'd be charged. And so that actually worked from a financial perspective to the benefit of the hotel. It meant it was easier to actually recruit staff because they actually felt like they were in a safer neighborhood. And it certainly, most importantly, from a financial perspective, it meant that the community supported us. And the more we went out and supported the community, whether it was with the celebrity pool toss, which has raised $4 million for tenderloin after-school programs, or a tenderloin Olympics that helped kids sort of go out and compete. The more we did that, the more people in the neighborhood would tell their friends or business associates when they were coming to town to come stay at that first hotel, the Phoenix. Well, we've replicated that 38 times now, 38 different hotels. And what we see is it also creates not just all these tangible benefits, it also creates the intangible benefit of a great brand reputation and a lot of pride and sense of meaning for the people who work in the company. So we have 3,300 employees in the company, and they feel like being part of Joie de Vivre is more than just a job. In the era we live in, where everybody gets really focused on the high tech and all about how do we invest in technology to make ourselves more effective and efficient, I think what a lot of businesses and a lot of leaders forget is that, frankly, the greatest potential is not your technology, it's your people. And how your people use technology to be more effective and efficient, great. But the difference between someone who walks into their work and just has a job versus someone who comes in and actually has a calling, and how you, as a customer, if it's a service business, how you feel the difference is enormous. And how leaders create an environment where they're helping their employees to be all they can be and live up to their potential and to feel empowered and engaged in the enterprise. The companies that do that well are peak performers. They're more likely to be successful.
City leaders who are often confronted with real-life issues of poverty, homelessness, crime, and affordable housing continue to use old social strategies that spawned from the Johnson administration's war on poverty. Finally, after 30 years, innovation leaders in government are trying new approaches. Dwayne Jones.
This city, and I would argue probably every city, has spent an enormous amount of money for literally decades and have not made a dent in the problem. So the opportunity is one. It's first the alignment of the existing resources that you have, and so it doesn't necessarily require that you shift resources from one place to another. It just simply requires that you align your strategy so that you have a larger order of magnitude of impact in that particular neighborhood. Why we started in Baby Hunters Point is that we realized that that particular community was poised to be the beneficiary of some $2 billion worth of economic infrastructure. We have the Hunters Point Shipyard. We had a dormant 3rd Street retail corridor. We had several massive lots that we had an opportunity to redevelop at the same time. And so what we did was take all those opportunities and begin to create one massive plan to make sure that, one, since we knew we were going to do this investment, this massive investment, how to make sure that the residents that live there are the first person beneficiary of those particular opportunities moving forward. And largely for me, it's about also changing the frame. And so talk about anti-poverty strategies, you seldom miss kind of the reality that this is about connecting folks to the things that they need. And so really reframing the whole discussion around workforce development in the context of opportunity, addressing health issues in the context of opportunity, I think is really helping folks begin to think of the work entirely differently. Your physical space, where you live, the environment in which you live has a huge impact on how you feel, how you perceive your prospects and opportunities for the future. And we believe that when we reconstruct the physical environment that folks live in, we will have a direct and immediate impact on education, on health, on crime, on employment. As we begin to kind of move forward, it gives folks a reason to connect the dots in a way that move their lives forward.
The way innovation is happening today. We're seeing a trend where less and less of it happens within one company or one laboratory, and more is happening through these very diversified networks. And there are more and more global networks, so people are tapping into resources and brains all around the world. Here within the Bay Area, it's where venture capital people meet entrepreneurs, where universities interact with entrepreneurs, where universities are spinning off faculty who go off campus, and they find incubators, they find various kinds of angel investors. It happens 100 different ways, but the creativity tends to happen at the intersection, where these communities meet up, and it's like, aha, there's a connection. We didn't see that connection. Or you have somebody involved in biotech who meets somebody who's actually doing something in maybe video, like, wow, you could do this video imaging thing, applying biotechnology to a new medical application. But if you don't have that kind of mixing going on, you would never know there was an opportunity. Innovation is fundamental at the regional economy. We are more focused on innovation here, more dependent on our ability to innovate than anywhere else in the world. And that's why people come from the entire world here to try to figure out, so how do we do it? How do we innovate here in a way they can take that experience and do it at home? And it's hard to do because we have, I won't say a secret sauce, but we have this unique mixture of ingredients that is just hard to replicate through government policies.
So we're moving into a new era, and we're moving into an era where the new model is around collaboration and innovating change in our communities. And so what I imagine is that instead of having this creative tension from the start, the way you end up tackling problems and really innovating new solutions is by having everyone at the table at the same time and then seeing what's possible. And so with urban economy, we're hoping and we believe that there is a platform that has to be constructed that allows for people in business, in government, and educational systems to come together to really solve some of our complex pressing problems that we're dealing with.
Cities need a new narrative for the emerging future. Innovation will be the platform for leaders to innovate change based on collaboration, creating a new innovation narrative with collaboration.
So I think the notion of a narrative for innovation is fundamentally important. We've always had a story in this country about what our ethos of exploration and the frontier and can do and overcoming obstacles has meant for our business culture. Now it seems like we're in need of a new narrative for innovation. It may be defining a new set of challenges that arouse the passion of a new generation. There's certainly one hypothesis that will be green innovation, and that will be the generational call to action, perhaps. I think that there's also the business of looking at America's role in global society, because we still have more resources around the large-scale innovation process than anyone else. And if we can couple our national self-interest to our historically altruistic point of view of doing good in the world, and if innovation becomes the theme around that kind of linkage to the outside world, I think that's a fantastic narrative.
The ability of artists to be visionaries and change makers is obvious, because it's their job to open up portions of their brain that you can easily get through life by not opening up and accessing. Is important for the development of the future of cities and urban environments.
Our vision is to connect all these different innovators, all these different visionaries, and people on the ground in a way that's so transparent that we build a resource that enables pretty much anything to happen in the world of healing, innovation, and community health. It's really about connecting people and connecting visionaries so that they can create this change that we need.
But think about the space age, right? The rockets launched, and we were all going to be walking on the moon in low gravity with our dogs on the moon with us, with a fishbowl on their head. It was like we were all driven by that future, and the graphic designers. There was whole new graphic design movements born of the space program. There were whole new music things like David Bowie's songs about space, right? All of this was culturally, we were excited about the future. And I would love to see that be the conversation about climate change and energy efficiency and new urban environments. Like, here is an opportunity to have an exciting vision for a new future that's more equitable, more people are healthier, and we higher quality of lives, but we've also solving this other problem.
For the past 20, 30 years, as those folks have retired and have now passed the baton, there's a void that is now beginning to be filled by young folks taking the mantle up, using these fields of innovation to fix some of the problems that plague their communities.
In a bottom-up economy, you know, how can you look at leadership? How can you look at those innovators that are really creating the new knowledge that we would have never imagined would come from them in our communities, in our regions? To me, that's where the new economy is. It's about social networks. It's about collaboration. And I think it's a very exciting model, and urban economy really wants to be a platform where we can see these opportunities emerge.